Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Dynamite Shirt Printing, Kyle Metz. What a guy. He came on as a sponsor, and my primary use for him is drop shipping. So what that means is that I don't got to buy inventory. I don't got to buy a bunch of t-shirts. Kyle handles it all. So it's ordered online, and then he prints it and ships it, and he handles everything. And it works out for both parties. If you're looking for something else like general screen printing, he handles that. He does embroidery. He does direct to garment, DTG, which means you can do one-offs, and there's no minimum on that. Kyle's been able to help a lot of businesses that I've been funneling to him just to get going and to, start up. I mean, you don't want to order 100 t-shirts when you're just coming out the gate. And Kyle can handle small orders, large orders. He can handle everything you need. That's Dynamite Shirt Printing, and it's dynamiteshirtprinting.com. Go check it out. My favorite skate shop in the Valley, 5anddimeeaston.com. You can shop online or in store. Their address is 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 11 to 7, Saturday, 10 to 7, and Sundays, 11 to 5. They carry clothing, shoes, boards, accessories, and more. You can get complete decks down there. They got grip. They got some local clothing down there as well. I know a couple guys that came on the show that they're now selling stuff in store, and they're exclusive to Fucked. They are doing so much for the independent skate community. They're doing so much for the DIY. They're doing a lot in the area with skateboarding, and I couldn't be prouder to have them as a sponsor. Their story is incredible, from starting it when they were 18 and then coming back later in life to opening up what the store is that they wanted. And the two guys down there are just incredible. I can't say enough good things about them. I love that they're a sponsor, and they really help out in the community. And if you skate or want to support them, please go check them out locally. It is 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA. Online, it is 5anddimeeaston.com. Please go check them out. All Valley Rooter, Jared LaBarba, friend of the show, childhood friend, Never Again Studios official plumber. 24-hour emergency services. 610-762-1656. That's 610-762-1656. They charge by the job, not by the hour, and they are 100% fully insured. They have free estimates. They also do installation and repair. They have a list of things. I can't go over them all on here, but you can find them at allvalleyrouter.net. All of Jared's services are on there. It's a beautiful website. You can contact him through that website. You can find out how to do, emergency services. Where should I call? Who should I contact? You can get all that there at allvalleyrouter.net. Free estimates, fully insured. Jared LaBarba. Check him out. Radio episode. Who knows what episode we are on? Welcome to Never Again Radio. How are you?
I'm doing good.
You are our first pregnant guest.
Thank you.
We were just talking about scheduling, and then I was like, what about this date? And you were like, I might be in labor. So I wanted to get you in here sooner than later. I met you through Finishers, through your husband, and then I saw you at JM's wedding, and I didn't know that you had this entire business. And then I was talking to Cherryville Photography about it, and then we had talked briefly on the phone, and then you started telling me the story on it, and then I was like, oh, I want to interview you. I just get interested in people and what they do. What is the name of your business now, and where was the starting point of you even just getting into it?
So my current business is called Indigo Iris Floral and Event Design. I started when I was like 15 as the delivery girl for our local florist in my hometown.
Where was your hometown?
In Blakely, Georgia.
There's a little bit of an accent.
Yeah.
I was just going to fill the audience in.
Middle of nowhere. Yeah. And do still have an accent. We've been up here 3 years and I can't get rid of it.
I like it. Keep it.
Yeah. Thanks. But that's how I got started, was just as a teenager. And we actually had like a program in high school that you could do floral design competitions.
That's crazy.
So I was interested in it, and I told
Is that something that's done down south?
yeah, it's actually like nationwide through
Yeah.
the Future Farmers of America
Oh, all right.
club. So I don't think it's as active up here.
In
Obviously.
the Nazareth School
Yeah,
District.
probably not. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's like 4-H center and stuff around here, so it's probably,
horticulture and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's like a spinoff of that, and you could go to state and do design competitions. And so I just went and offered so that I could learn how to do like design basics and learn what flowers were called. And of course, like it was a super small town design studio where they didn't call anything the right names.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually do good at the competitions because it was nothing like a daisy. They called it a pom-pom or something like that. So when you're trying to identify what they're called,
It's just
it's
these
like
Southern
that,
nicknames.
Yep, Southern nicknames of everything. So that was fun to learn. And then I was actually in school for education, went to college for teaching degree, and just kind of realized that wasn't my thing, and kind of tried to figure it out. And someone said, hey, the local florist is actually closing, and so no one's going to be in business there, and you know how to do it. So would you be interested? And so I bought a floral studio and started there. So we had a small retail flower and gift shop called Sweet Caroline's Blakely Flowers and Gifts.
Yeah.
At a 1973 Volkswagen bus with pink shag carpet that we would do deliveries and different.
There's a girl around here that does flower pop-ups, and she's got the old I forget the name of her business. I saw her in the Promenade a couple times, and she comes up to Nazareth, but she has the old bus, and then I think it's like a tarp top that she pulls back, and then has Volkswagens did some cool stuff with the vans. My old man used to have one. When you, because it's weird how when you start getting into something you like, and then you end up trying to either go down a path that like you think that that's what you're supposed to be going on, because you should, you know, when you're growing up, you're like, oh, you don't know what you want to do, and then you're just kind of like, well, I'll just get a job.
Yeah.
And then like, because my brother went for teaching, and then he went into the union, and then on the back end of his career, I think because he actually liked teaching, he'll use teaching to teach people at work. So it's like he didn't get a degree, but like the form that he was learning, he'll apply to the job that he really wanted. But it's always crazy because it's been that way for me, where you start somewhere and you're like, oh, well, I can't do that thing that I love for a living. So then you go try and do something else. But then like, it's weird how sometimes it comes full circle where you're like, you have an opportunity to be like, oh, well, I am going to go over there. Like I left a couple of real jobs for when friends were like opening restaurants, and we're like, you know, there's always the risk, and all of it didn't work out at that time. But like you want to go after a passion. What was it like, or how did you fall in love with flowers and like want to do that?
So I mean, I did it in high school as the competition and everything, and
Did you like the competition aspect or the creativity aspect?
No, the creativity for sure. I was a jack of all trades, master of none kind of kid. Like I could do crafts, and that was about like the extent of
I couldn't put Legos
what I was
together.
good at. My brother was like the sporty and like he was super into school and did really good at it, and I was just like really good at art. And really good at like anything that was basic creativity. Like I did wood burning, I did different kinds of furniture.
Oh, that's cool.
Like remodeling different things. I still, like Josh will say, that we have so many projects around our house because I just can't. I have ADD, so I do everything all at once. So that's kind of how it started, and it snowballed. Like you said, like you start in something. I really loved education in my head, but it wasn't really what I loved. I loved teaching people.
Yeah.
So like through having my own shop, like I hired people that didn't know what they were doing too.
So then you got to
so
teach them anyways.
Yeah, so you could teach them, and that was really fun. And that's
What's the first thing you did when you walked in that shop and were like, holy shit, I'm now running my own business?
Oh yeah, that was definitely yeah. Well, I was 19 when I started, so that was
crazy.
100% what I did. And I actually got like a pizza studio, was what it was. Because they still had the cooler left over, so I was like, I could turn this into like what I want. So I came in and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, like we have a cooler, but what else do we do now? So it was establishing like wholesalers and stuff like that I wasn't quite like.
It's weird when you first start out because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then like I was talking to somebody on the phone today. I was booking a podcast, and they asked me about like how I make money on this, and I was just like, man, like it's so hard to explain because I built the business from nothing. Like, absolutely, it was an idea that was then turned into this, and then no one else was doing it, so then you don't really have anyone to talk to. But like I said, I would talk to like Zach and JM, and they were building their own businesses, and then I just started really talking to other business owners. But like, I'm still learning how to run this correctly, and it's still not like, I mean, it's an odd thing to make money on, and when we open the restaurant, that'll be more of a normal cash flow income than what I'm doing here. But like, it's so scary in the beginning because you just don't know where anything's coming from.
Yeah.
And you're like, ugh. I call my friends and they'd be like, you need to calm down. They're like, just after a couple months, you'll settle in. And if you kind of just like brave the storm, and you just kind of like settle into like understanding how things work.
Yeah. Well, and same thing too was like, I was 19. What are you expecting to make from this? And I was like, oh crap. Like, I just want to make my overhead. Like, so here's my overhead. Like, let's plan to maybe make like $1,000 more, and like we could make ends meet. And it was like the first month we did like $10,000 over what the expectation was.
That's
and
crazy.
I was 19 and I was like, I'm rich. This is great.
Let's go to the movies.
Yeah, exactly. So like I was like, I'm set. This is great. And obviously like it was a lot of hard work and like continuous ordering stuff. And like I could actually kind of figure out what I wanted my business to look like. So
that's when it starts getting fun.
Yeah. So we did a lot of like our gifts and stuff weren't just gifts. Our gifts were like things that were made by veteran-owned businesses, and then like...
How many people did you have to start to actually run it?
So I had about 3 employees when I first started.
You're crazy. 19 years old.
Yeah.
You weren't even old enough to drink, and you had 3 employees?
Yeah, and I mean, everybody was part-time because
still, you have to find people that are responsible.
Yeah. You hope so.
Yeah. Believe me, it's the thing I'm worried about the most moving up the street.
Yeah, it took time, and we went through a lot of employees. I really enjoyed like hiring like high schoolers that were in the same position that I was when I learned how to do it. So we would like teach everybody how to do it afternoons. Like we would take breaks and take like time to learn the mechanics of how to make a floral design for a funeral and this kind of arrangement this day, and that kind of stuff was really fun for me.
Yeah, because then you start, like what you said with the funeral, you start picking up business that I wouldn't even think. But I mean, my friend... parents own a funeral shop. There's always flowers in a funeral shop, and the wedding. So it's not just like you're selling flowers in and out of a shop. Your main business is probably coming from people that are ordering for weddings and funerals. And was there other shops in town that you were competing with, or were you kind of your own thing?
There was one other shop, but it was
Look at that smirk. You run them out of business? Is that what you did?
No,
Young lady?
So, no, she was like, she had owned it for like 50 years, and like, if you didn't know her, then she wasn't accepting you as a client. Yeah. So, like, it was an interesting, like, competition, but not really competition.
Yeah. She had her built-in clients already. And
yeah, she would send people to me just because she didn't want new clients and stuff like that. So that was interesting. But, like, funeral work and stuff like that was one that you wouldn't think for as small of a town that we were in was as big of a business as it was. But, like, we would, on average, have, like, 3 to 4 funerals a weekend, if not more. And it was a town of like 5,000 people. So it was just like, oh, wow. Like we have more funeral work than even 2 or 3 florists could handle. So they would go to the town over to when we were too busy even. There were weekends that like I had my parents coming up and we were just carrying stuff into people's cars. We would have like 4 cars going to funerals. And that just like built a business that I wasn't kind of like ready for, but
good problem to have.
But like we learned a lot through that process, and then it kind of helped me when we were moving up here to figure out like, okay, so I can start over. What did I really love about each of these portions of the business that I had down in Georgia when I had a retail shop, and like what do I want to learn and what do I want to take away from it?
Did you guys move up here because of Josh and like his the military and work, or he just wanted to come up this way?
Yeah, so he did jiu-jitsu and really loved 10th Planet. So we were just like, okay, we can move anywhere. Where do you want to move to? So it was either here or San Diego because he really liked 10th Planet.
Did you still have the shop at that time?
So I had just sold the shop, so like 2 months before.
Was that hard for you?
Not like, so I put it up for sale, and then like 2 weeks later I had a cash offer, and somebody was just like, we want to buy it and all, and I was like,
cool.
Okay.
I didn't know if anyone would bite on that.
Okay. Yeah, I just put feelers out to some people that I'd known and just was like, would anybody be interested in this? Because we had a hurricane that came through, and like we were closed for 2 weeks, but ultimately turned into like 2 months. And so I was working another full-time job on top of owning the shop, and I was just run down, and I was like, okay, this is no longer fun.
Yeah.
So let me see what I need to prioritize. And at the time I needed to prioritize having a full-time job. And then too, like we sold the shop, and I was like, okay, we really don't have anything tying us down here.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I could get a job wherever, and Josh was able to move too. So, we kind of like picked on a map where we wanted to go, and San Diego was too expensive, so we came here first.
That's wild.
Yeah. So
I think I remember that story now from interviewing him and talking to the guys that school was the reason why you guys ended up here.
yeah, and that was back when they were kind of like in their Easton location too.
Which one was it? Was it the one over by Redner's?
Next to
Or the one by Jimmy John's?
The one next to Soldier Fit.
Yes, that is the Redner's Plaza one.
Yeah.
Bart on Lanes is back there.
Yeah, so I remember just like when Josh came back from visiting, and he was like, oh my gosh, and this is so cool. Like, I actually get to learn, because he had a school in Georgia too. So we were both on like the same town square. He had his business on one side, and I had mine on the other side. So it was really cool.
How old were you when you guys met?
So we met when I was 21.
So you guys have known each other for a very long time at this point.
Like 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we just celebrated our 4th year anniversary on the 1st of the month, so it's been a little while.
Awesome.
Yeah. But we have tolerated each other well.
Yeah. That's how you make it work. You find someone that's tolerable.
Yeah, but a lot of it was based on like our mutual like respect for each other, and our ownership of like wanting to do different entrepreneurial routes.
Especially when you both, sometimes it's only one person has that, and then it's awkward to try and balance that out. But when two have it, it's probably way harder, because you got to give each other space for the things that you need to make yourself sane.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder in some ways, but it's better because you have somebody who understands. Like, hey, I'm answering people at 2 a.m. sometimes on emails. Like, that's just what you got to do to like make it work. Or I was talking about it the other day, was just like, man, I don't even know what it's like to be off at 5 p.m. like in the afternoon, or like.
It's weird when you start doing your own thing.
Weekends. Yeah.
Like today, I had a super late start by my choice. I reset the alarm 3 times, but my entire day is behind. But now I'm going to be working probably till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Like, I look at it that way sometimes. Like, I do have the freedom to choose, but if you don't get your shit done, you needs to get done. So now I'm going to be working late, which sometimes I prefer, but the more I get into the business, because it's funny where like you think that you want to structure your own hours, but then once you start structuring your own hours, it's way easier to just do the shit in the morning and be done with it, so you can like have a normal existence. We used to do the podcast at 9 p.m. Like, you wouldn't have came down I don't think you would have came down pregnant at 9 p.m. to do a show, but it's more than you're going.
Sleep at 7:30. So no.
Yeah. So like when I started doing this now, and like had more freedom when I was, doing the show by myself, it's like now I can kind of like book accordingly, and it works way better. But this is also going to take up time, and then I'm going to fill that time up. It's exactly what everyone says. It's 10 times the work of, but I mean, I would prefer this over anything.
Yeah.
I barely get by, and this is the happiest I've ever been, because I have control of my creativity and control of my day. And if it's weird, I'll just not work that day. I got more work to do the next day, but at least I don't have to like stand in front of a flat top just being like, why am I here? Why?
What is my existence?
Yeah. Coldplay is playing off in the background.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what spiraled for me, was just like, what do I want to do? Like, do I actually want to be a teacher? Do I actually want like a 9-to-5 job? Like, I'm passionate about so many things, and I do have a 9-to-5 that I really love right now, but like, I also am able to fit in all of my other things that I love to do, which includes like my business.
Yeah.
And Iris too.
So when did you pack up when you guys were like, let's head up to B-Town?
So we did it right before the pandemic.
That's
2020.
fun.
Yeah, January, and then
at least they kept the school open.
Yeah, with the brown paper bags on the
Yeah.
wall and stuff.
Yeah. No one knew
But,
what to do.
You know,
I mean, we kept ripping the podcast.
yeah. And I mean, life kind of went forward for them, but not for like a lot of the stuff that I do. So
No,
it was
no.
Like Josh still kind of had a sense of normal, and then I was just stuck in our little 1-bedroom apartment at the Silk Mill in Easton.
I went crazy.
Yeah.
I went crazy.
Yeah.
I was stuck down here, and I didn't get bailed out on anything. And even though I had to start doing the podcast, there was a lot of, I mean, it changed everything because I was doing like web development, and I was working with my buddy, and we were selling things that basically every guest that came in, most of them are small businesses, and there's something that I do that I can sell to them, and then I'm kind of the middleman to make money off of. So like, I had probably $10,000 worth of websites lined up, and all of them at once were like, we're not spending any money. We don't know what's going on. We don't even know if we're ever opening up this restaurant again. And then I was just like, what is my existence?
Yeah.
Except for it's with this. And then, I mean, we drank for like 2 weeks, and then after that, I mean, that was when like people weren't driving, like, you know, like when it was real weird, when it was like, you know, I couldn't even hug my mom, and you're just barely seeing anybody. My friend would sneak over, and he's like, I think I can get arrested if I'm outside. That's when we drank. We were doing like shoeies because the fights were still on.
God.
But after that kind of settled down, I was like, man, I really need to figure out what I'm going to do. And then that's when the business kind of changed. And like when I started developing things differently and started working. And then I had to start podcasting alone because Jesse wasn't coming over. And then everything changed. The whole show changed. Everything completely was changed due to the pandemic in a good way, but not during it.
Yeah.
It sucked.
And I mean, I worked in events, so like, yeah.
yeah. And you also couldn't get toilet paper.
So like, everybody was like, well, we're postponing our wedding. Okay, for when? Nobody knows.
So
Okay.
So what were you doing when you came up? Were you just kind of freelancing and had some contacts here and just kind of like doing social media a little bit, or was it a business that you had already started once you got here?
So I had actually like completely moved away from owning the business, and we moved up here, so I was just like, I need a job to start out. So I was working at a car dealership.
That's fun.
And so that was fun. Super fun if you're Southern and coming from a Southern place to like a New York, New Jersey borderline car dealership.
Yeah. That's totally wild.
Not only are you getting the new people that you're getting used to, you're also getting like the car dealership. Like,
there's no Southern hospitality in New York or New Jersey.
No, people look at you like you're an asshole if you open the door for them.
Yep.
So
It's weird.
It took some time getting used to, but it kind of like Josh had already gotten used to some of it from being up here longer than I had. So he was already kind of getting that attitude. And so I was like, oh gosh, well, I'm just thrown into it now that I'm here. But I worked there for a few months during the pandemic, and that changed too because like
because then they stopped.
Then you couldn't get
crazy.
cars, and then like commission and stuff got screwed over because like nobody, like what were you gonna do? You were gonna get paid on somebody coming in to buy a car. Well, they weren't even allowing you to come in to buy a car. They would allow you to test drive it and stuff, and then drop the keys back off, or like you would be able to. Maybe like make an appointment where they would come to your house. Well, then I can't get paid on that because it's not like a show.
And then used cars were the big thing to sell because I was looking for a van at the time because I wanted to get out of because I don't know why I think we started doing the food stuff and my truck was breaking down. So it was a perfect time to start a food business during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, I was primarily just at Finishers, but when I was trying to find the van, I was looking new because I was like, I'll just get new and I don't got to worry about it. And every place I went is like, we no longer have transits because couples were buying them to turn into campers.
Yep.
And then school districts were buying them to move kids around because they couldn't get any more school buses or something. And then I was just like, this is wild. And then the last place I looked was like a massive, like one of those auto mile places, and no one had cars. And they're like, no one can get cars anymore because of a computer chip, and we don't have access to it. Then the used car dealerships were pissed because the car dealerships were buying all the used ones up to sell because they couldn't even get cars in.
That was me.
That's nuts.
That was my job.
Yeah.
I was the one who would call you and say like, hey,
we'll take every used car on your lot.
Yep, I was that person. And so like my Southern accent helped because they were a little thrown off because, you know, well, I was calling to buy something back. They would at least stay on the phone most of the time.
Yeah.
So like that worked out. But then after a little while, I moved back into doing flowers, and I worked for another like local florist, and then
Is it
kind
something
of
you just kind of fell back into, or you were just tired of people from New Jersey? And,
it was a little bit of both. Mike.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of both. But it was more like, I know how to do this. Why am I doing stuff
That's
that I
another
don't
thing
like?
to pay attention to when you
know?
get into a new thing and you're like, man, like I got to learn a whole new skill set, but I have this whole skill set over here. That's why I always ended up back in cooking. Like, cause I would try something new and then I'd be like, I don't know if I like this. I got to like change my entire mannerisms and like I got to act specific ways and like I got to, it's going to take 5 years till I'm actually making the money I was making cooking.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, you know what? I always know that they need cooking, or I'd hit up my old boss and be like, can I just come back? I'll work Monday through Friday. I'll work the 12-hour days. Just give me the weekends off. Can we just do this correctly this time? Never worked out. But I would always jump back into food because it was always bartending was the same way. I could work 3 nights a week, make a couple $100, and then I don't got to deal with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't got to deal with like coworkers and other stuff like that. Working in a bar and a kitchen was the closest thing to what it would feel like to running your own business, because you have a little bit more freedom, because it's just kind of like a wild, this is like a wild scenario that you're kind of left to deal with. And it's like, all right, you guys got to work together. You got to deal with the stress, and like it turns you into a different type of person. So, I mean, to go back to floral stuff probably felt good after being in something foreign like cars.
Yeah. Well, and I'd worked with another florist, and I just like had observed from working with other vendors and stuff that I was just like, man, they just don't have the Southern hospitality that I'm used to. Like, the level of service that I give is so far, not to brag on myself.
No,
like,
I think it's important to pay attention to that, especially if you're trying to open something and you're scared to do it. Like, I look at like how I'm going to do food, and like I'm hoping people start paying attention and raise the bar a little bit.
Yeah.
People, sometimes people get lazy with stuff, or like you just see that you would do things a different way, and I'm like, man, there's a whole other avenue of how I could be doing this. And then like when we open the bagel shop, that's gonna be very unique to what anyone's doing. Like, we're going to be getting up at 3 a.m. Like, that sucks. Do you know how many people don't like getting up at 3 a.m.?
Exactly.
99.9%. But I told Gina, I'm like, I don't care. My whole life's going to change. Like, I don't care that I have to get up early, because if you're in Nazareth and you walk up the street and get a bagel and it's hot, you're going to leave there and be like, man, this is so cool that this is here for us.
Yeah.
So to be able to notice that, I think more people should start paying attention to those thoughts and go after, hey, I can make a unique business. Where most people try and copy what others are doing, but you being able to see that foresight and be like, man, these people are doing this wrong. They're throwing flowers at people. Here you go.
Well, it was just like I was seeing like the same thing when you would say, like, oh, hey, I'm getting married. And then it was just like, here, fill out this questionnaire. We may talk to you if your budget's like a certain amount. And it was just like, these people are coming out of COVID. Like, they're rescheduling their weddings 2 or 3 times.
Oh,
their
could you imagine having that scheduled
them.
during the COVID?
Yeah, like their venue dropped them. They were like already stressed the heck out with everything else. I was like, the last thing that I want to do is add to that. If anything, like, let me help just
make you feel like a person again.
Yeah, exactly. So like a lot of these people that were like rescheduling and stuff that were reaching out to me were just like, the level of service, the fact that you like ask questions that I haven't been asked, that people actually care to, know.
Yeah, isn't that wild when a business treats you like a person?
Yeah, and then I like, and then too, maybe it's like the Southern thing.
There's a lot of that. I lived in Virginia. I lived in Virginia twice, and both times I stayed there for a year, and it's a different world. It's way more people are getting along. It's just it felt less divided, and like I came down there where I would like, you'd be going to the mall, but you would have this like abrasive feel, like, well, like you just, how people are around here. It's crazy. Even just like, I was like, man, it's crazier at the Lehigh Valley Mall than most of the state of Virginia, where everybody's just rude. And like, then you go down there and someone's like, hey, he opens the door. Hey, have a great day. And I'm just like, I'm
like offended. Like, what is this?
Yeah. I worked in a factory with a bunch of Southern old guys, and they were just talking about moonshine and all day. The one guy, Otis, it took me probably 3 months till I understood what he was saying, but he'd always be like, it's hotter than a nanny goat in a pepper field here right now. But like stuff like that, I'm like, man, this is so wild. But then when I get to meet all these people, it's way different.
Yeah.
On a better level than it is to deal with a lot of what you put up with in this side.
Yeah, I just like I wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
So I, like it kind of
It
took
was
me.
the reverse for me down there.
Yeah, it took me back for a second because I was like, man, people used to come in my shop to ask about weddings, and they'd just sit down and we'd talk for like 3 hours and just
Yeah.
hang out. Like I had a couch, I had a whole section for them to sit down. And
That's
then
cool.
You go into a local florist, and then they have you like in an office filling out a paperwork, and like if your budget is at X amount, then they'll actually talk to you. If it's not, then have fun finding another person to do it. So I was just like, Josh, I can do this again, like out of the house. Is that okay? Josh was like, okay. And so within like 4 months, I actually had to rent a studio space because we just outgrew the
You knew what you were
basement.
doing too. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I'd done it before, but not with the level of focus on events. And so it was a different mindset for me to go and be able to focus on just working with brides and grooms and clients that had one goal. And
So you primarily focused on weddings when you got right back.
Yeah.
Well, so you left cars at this point, and then you're kind of deciding to get back into it, but you're just kind of deciding to keep it online, and then just kind of primarily dealing with just weddings, which would be the same as doing catering and just doing food.
yeah, exactly. So like we're only working with clients that are like booking for one day alone. Like I'm having contact with them all throughout the year just to like confirm different things and like having consultations with them, but other than that, it's not like the full on.
Did you build a website or just
Retail, et
primarily
cetera.
build it off of Instagram?
So I built a website, but it has not gotten much traction. I've been very surprised at like Google knocked out my listing within like 2 seconds because somebody like
Paid.
said that it was a false listing or
Oh,
something.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's a very competitive environment up here.
Yeah.
But I started just doing it off of Instagram and Thumbtack too. I worked off Thumbtack, which is an app that you can find just anybody in the service industry, and I was surprised with how much I got off there. But we booked like 60 weddings this year
That's crazy.
from like, nothing out of our house. And
Yeah.
then we actually were just mentioned in Philly magazine.
Yo.
I got a notification about that like 2 days ago that we had one of our weddings from the spring was at the Penn Museum in Philly. And it's just like wild to me to go from like I was driving a hoopty van at 16
Yeah.
delivering flowers, like this van that shook because they never had alignment and like the speedometer didn't work, so
Yeah.
it rolled around. You never knew
Gas
how fast you
gauge.
were going.
You had to,
Yeah,
you
like
had to
at
pay attention.
16, that's how I started, and working kind of like in a small town where people didn't really appreciate flowers, and they were friends or friends of family members, and they wanted discounts, and like
Yeah.
the most expensive wedding I'd ever done was like $2,000, which isn't much for a wedding. And then up here, we've done some like wild things that I'm just like we are doing weddings in Philadelphia now. Do you know where I'm from? Like middle
Yeah.
of nowhere. So that's pretty cool. And then to like now have like a mention in Philly magazine, it was just
It's
like,
huge.
man.
So what was it like to get back into the business and then see it start working again? Because I mean, what name did you go by when you started it officially back as to what it is now?
So like what it is now is Indigo and Iris, Flora and Event.
And is that what you chose as soon as you kind of went out on your own and was just doing weddings?
Yeah.
And then, so what was it like to see that idea that you probably thought about while sitting in a car dealership waiting for break to kind of start transforming? And then when you start picking up traction like that, and then you start getting kind of the credit and the notability, and you start being in magazines, and you start really booking out for the year, that's going to be wild.
I mean, it was just like this realization that like, man, I actually do know a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
more than I thought I
Yeah.
did, or
Yeah.
like what I wasn't confident in because like I had felt like the opinions of people that didn't really care about what I was doing back home.
Yeah. It's wild when
know.
you listen to shit like that.
Yeah. So like growing up and being in that area, and then people are like, oh, I'm not gonna pay $50 for a flower arrangement. And then up here, where people don't even bat an eye at some of the prices that you give and some of the crazy stuff you get to do. Like, I did a wedding that we did mannequins and painted them chrome and had flowers just wrapped around them and stuff. Like disco balls. We did a floral chandelier.
So now does that like, because I want to get into this for a second.
Yeah.
So like when you sit down with a client, from what it sounds is you're going to give them whatever they want. So I mean, you probably have the background and the creativity to do that. But what's that like when, you know, how does that interaction go? Where they're like, hey, well, we're coming to you because we want this vibe, and then like, do they approach you and say, hey, I want to do mannequins? And you're just like, yeah, we've done mannequins before. And you get out of the meeting and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, how does that even come about to get into those style weddings?
That wedding in particular was super fun because it was just like a snowball into like, we were like, what cool things we could do.
Yeah.
Because like.
Now, this is a conversation you have with the client?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like it was a same-sex couple. It was two girls. They were both in creative fields in their work, and they're both just really creative people. And they were like, how can we incorporate something that's not a wedding? Like, we're already married.
That's probably when that happens, you're probably like, let's go.
Yeah.
Because that's when you get to do fun stuff.
Yeah. And then so originally they were like, our budget is this, but if you can give us cool stuff like animals riding whatever and they're made out of flowers, cool. Like if you make something that's like a Pokemon and it's out
now
here,
at that point, have you done anything like that, or is it extensive research? Do you have to give yourself enough time? How do you know they're gonna like it?
There's a lot
I
of
have
questions.
anxiety.
I had all of the questions, and then also like it was funny when it turned into mannequins. So they actually like had a FaceTime with me, and they were like, we just want it to show our personalities. And she was like, I have these like random baby heads that are planters. Like I turned into like green plants are hanging out of them, and we have like a foot that has a planter in it. And I was like, how the heck am I supposed to make your wedding feel like a foot and a baby head? Like,
yeah.
Okay. But I was like, but you guys have a mannequin here. What if we did mannequins and like had some kind of cool thing to it and texture, and then I can kind of bounce ideas off the clients. It's not often that you get cool clients that want to do crazy stuff. So when it is, it's really exciting. So
but that's cool then, because then when you can feature that or show it to other clients, then you can start going down the realm of like, well, say you have somebody looking for something a little bit different. They're like, oh, well, now we see her catalog. Well, she can give us this wild stuff. And then that's when you can really start getting into having some cool clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And then more often than not, it's going to be the people that are just doing like a green and white wedding or burgundy blush and cream that like see that picture and they're like, whoa.
Do you still do funerals?
No.
Yeah.
Not up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they use the retail florals, and there's just not as much of a focus here as there is in the South. It's also like a cultural kind of difference, I think. Like a lot of people, that's how you show your respect to their family is, you know, sending a $150 arrangement to make sure like their family knows it. So your whole house would be covered in flowers.
Yeah.
There. But it's not quite the same up here like you do in lieu of flowers. Like they donate to places or stuff. So we do more.
Probably easier to focus on one thing too. Less depressing.
It's so nice. Well, you know, honestly, I really liked it because
you're comforting them.
I liked being able to follow like my clients through all stages of life. Like celebrating can mean so many things. Like celebrating a life being born, a life passing, like we're still celebrating you and your family. So like there were people that were loyal customers that like their dad would die, and that would be a thing that they used me for their baby shower and their wedding, and then now they're using me too. Like it was a sense of like circle of life fulfillment kind
like
of
you're
thing.
a part of their family as well.
Yeah, so I do miss that part of it, like being able to be that like liaison between them and comfort in different ways. So that part like was a bit more personal than weddings are. Weddings up here are kind of just like, here, like, let's have a full consult and then I'll talk to you before your wedding. You know, sometimes people like it better that way because they're from here and that's what they're used to. So that's taken some adjusting and like figuring out what works for that client and the level of communication they want. If they want to chat and text me, cool. If they want to email me only and do everything formal, cool, awesome.
I hate email.
Yeah.
So at this point, where are you at with the business? Because I want to get into your other job as well. But so the business starts taking off, and you're moving it, and like, you know, now you're being mentioned in Philly. Like, What are your plans for it? Do you have a brick and mortar? Do you want to move to a brick and mortar? I mean, you have a baby coming, so I mean that's going to throw. You got cannoli.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So like, where do you want to go with everything?
So we do have 4 dogs and a baby on the way. So I'm taking kind of like a step back from full on booking, like, and not actively advertising, but it still is getting a good bit of traction. Like I checked, and yesterday I had 7 emails of new inquiries. I don't know how they find me. I don't know how they even get my email, Instagram maybe, but I don't have a ton of followers on Instagram. So
well, word of mouth is a lot of stuff that comes through.
It's a lot of referrals. Like I said, I do have that extra level that to the point where most of my clients, like out of the 60 or so weddings I've done, over like 30 of them have reviewed, and it's all 5-star reviews. And the most like common comment on there is just how much that like I talk to clients.
Yeah,
and
I think it's important.
Level of service that they didn't expect, which I really appreciate that I've been able to build that reputation that they do suggest friends to come.
I like talking like that in the sense of for work. Like I'll get I mean, before I book somebody on the show, I get on the phone with them and I talk to them, and I want to develop a relationship to see how the show is going to go. Like we don't have any problem talking, but sometimes you run into introvert people or people who are nervous to come on. So it's like important to build that relationship up. And then I feel like people's reaction when the show is over, it wasn't just like an hour that we spent together. Like it's like I reached out, then we talked about doing a show, and then we got on the phone with each other, and then we did this, and then you start networking, you start developing a relationship with the client before you even start working together. And once you do that, somebody's comfortable with you. And then once somebody's comfortable with you, they're going to be honest for the most part. They're going to actually, if they're purchasing something, they're going to purchase what they actually want, not something that they don't want.
Yeah.
And it really makes the job 10 times easier, and it's not any more work, and it takes a lot of confusion out, because like I always say is you can interpret a text and an email and any, you could read it as if the person's yelling at you if you wanted to. Like, so I mean, when I first started learning business and I got into sales with Axelrad, I used to be annoying to some people because I didn't want to email. And I would be like, hey, look, we're going to get into email, but can you just tell me what you want so I don't have to spend 3 weeks of us going back and forth? And then when you actually try and put sentences into an email to like describe something, like it's a nightmare. It's probably out of everything that I have to do and what I need to be better at doing would probably be better at like sitting down and writing formal emails and not like having terrible slang and like incorrect grammar, and like when you read it, like I remember the dude from Axelrad was like, yo bro, I don't understand anything you're saying. But there was another guy up there who was as crazy as me, and we could read each other's like just terrible, because it was like, it's like a new language. But like I would always get on the phone and be like, yo, do you have 3 minutes? Everyone's got 3 minutes. You're not that busy. You're gonna spend time writing an email longer. So like that one-on-one, that's priceless. And I feel like when you can figure out how to do that with a business, you're going to stick out ahead of others, and your business is going to be way better than others, because people are going to feel like it's family. Like it's not like someone's just coming on here and it's like we're ripping a podcast. Most of the people that I have on here, especially like the finisher guys, because like I was interested in interviewing Josh because I always saw him around because he stood out because he's a big dude. But his Instagram was always so wild with the frogs. And then I was like, yo, I got to talk to this guy. But after I sat down, I don't have an hour to talk to Josh. We barely have enough time when we work out. We have about 5 minutes. But like, I'm not going to have an hour to talk to you. Our lives are different in places. But when you sit down and you communicate like this, it changes everything. I think it's super important. It's probably what makes you stand out more than the most.
Yeah, well, so like my process is that like you get an email, but past like the first email, then I don't want to talk to you until we've had a like full virtual consultation. So I devote like at least 1 hour to the first initial one. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but like my consultations with my clients look so different than what you see normal for florists. Like I want to call you and just say like, hey, what's up? Tell me about your story, how you guys got together, what your vision is for your wedding, and then how I can help you, rather than like a checklist of like, okay, what do you need? 1 boutonniere, 1 corsage. Okay, here's your price. Like, okay,
what colors do you want? And then now you're doing the same thing. It'd be so boring to do that for you.
Yeah. And like I had a client where she was like, honestly, this is my vision. And she sent me a Pinterest board and none of it made sense. And so on our conversation, I talked through what her actual goals were and like what she wanted. and what colors were important to her, like what her love story was, what they imagined it, this kind of stuff. And we like came to terms on like some things that were really important to her. And the planner was like, I don't know how you got out of that conversation what she wanted, but somehow you did. And I made like a PowerPoint that had pictures on it that referenced exactly what we talked about, but she couldn't put it into words and she couldn't find pictures that like were similar. But because I talk to enough people and know like kind of how to get what I want out of them and have that intentional conversation, then I can kind of determine from the gibberish of what your actual wedding should look like or what you want it to look like. So
Yeah.
that kind of point really stands out for me as like a business owner. That's what I'm proud about that we've been able to establish. So I'm with your question about like what we're doing next year is like kind of taking a step back, but being really intentional about the weddings that I can take now. So I'm really wanting to focus on projects that I'm really like passionate about rather than just quality over quantity right now. So I'm still booking weddings, but they're going to be a little further out so we can get adjusted to having a kid at the house. We don't know what that's going to entail for us.
When you, what's your end goal with it? Do you want brick and mortar? Do you want your own space to be working in that your kids can work in, or you can go to a job? Do you want to get out of your house? Like, what do you kind of envision as your workspace?
So, like, right now, I'm good with what I have at the house. I've actually been able to set up a really cool, like, studio for myself downstairs in our garage in our basement.
Nice.
Yeah, so we adjusted, like, from my studio. I just brought everything from my studio back to our garage, and it was a little overwhelming. But, like, as we've been able to kind of
Cut the fat out.
Get through it and put stuff in storage. The storage, like, I have 100-something candles. Like, where the heck does that go? We're figuring it out.
Yeah, I can't wait to, it's one thing I'm looking forward to with moving here is, like, really, like, what are we using and what are we not using? Because I've moved this, like, 6 times, and I have boxes of just, like, stupid shit.
Like, what is even in here?
Yeah. Like, I have boxes that are just filled with, like, stuff that just could all be thrown out, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know what it goes to. The art, I have literally boxes of art in the back, because when we first were building it, you're just nervous and you don't know what to do. So I just would buy decorations because I thought I would make the show better. So, like, I just kept buying shit. At that time, it wasn't even video. But I love buying art and I like supporting artists and stuff. But, like, I have so much shit that, like, doesn't need to be. Like, there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, cool, we're taking this. Like, these tables are going to get repurposed somehow. And, like, let's see what we can repurpose. But in the end, like, it's not going to be this. Like what I told you when you were down here, it's like it's going to be hard to part away, but like when you move on to a new chapter, sometimes you just need to really put that old space in the past. And like this will forever be an amazing spot where I was like the most I'll ever be able to be creative as like an artist, but like the next spot will be nothing like this because I've evolved and I don't want the next spot to be like this. I want it to be a little cleaner. I want there to be some hidden doors and like, I want to do I want to do some wild shit. Like the new studio is so much bigger. So like, I want to create it almost like Disney where like, I'm going to have like these 2 palm trees that come up and I want them to go into the ceiling and I'm going to have this guy that was on the podcast, like build them with me.
Cool.
So like in the new spot, like this is when I did all this, it was like, what I could work with at the time. And now like my knowledge is more and like I'm moving into a real studio, but we're building it from nothing. So I was like, well, if we're going to put a tiki bar in, like we need palm trees. But now I know to tell myself that that's not like that's possible.
Yeah.
Because we've already done it. So I mean, this is technically your 3rd time being a flower person, a florist.
Yeah.
So it's like now it's like, oh, well, I could get into rent and a shop and all that, or I can just build this all at home, work from home, cut our costs down, simplify, and still hit home runs.
Yeah, well, for me, it was just like, I'm literally not going to be able to use the studio space for at least 5 months. So we got rid of the studio space, but like it was great for the last like year that we've had it. And we were able to pump out all the weddings that we did only because we had the studio space. So that was good. But obviously, I loved having a brick and mortar, but up here it's a little bit different too. So I think for now,
yeah, if you're not in a place with foot traffic, like this town's so bizarre. They're like there's kind of foot traffic coming in and out, but like you know, if I was running an actual business and not a podcast down here, like, I don't know if they could ever really use this space because of the stairs and the barbershop struggles because we don't get foot traffic. Like, I'm hoping to change that, but like, if you're in like a cool southern town where like people are coming in and out all the time and like will come by your shop,
It's totally different down there.
Yeah.
Like we had in our town like 7 boutiques, like 5,000 people and 7 boutiques and like 6 hairdressers. The amount of random stuff that did good because there were just people that wanted to come and sit on the city square and hang out and do that kind of stuff is way different than up here. Like, you can't even survive as a boutique. There's like 3 in the whole Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
There's a lady who does all right up here, but she's been here from the beginning. So she's that lady who has that built-in clientele. It's Lynn's Florist is up. She does it's a cool shop. It's like small and, you know, it's wood floor and stuff like that. So she really uses it. But I mean, I don't know how many different girlfriends I went in there. I was like, they're like, oh, you screwed up again. I'm like, yeah, what do you want? Something simple. I think she's mad at me. Like, was always my relationships with florists, was buying flowers for girls that I upset while we were dating. But like, that's where I would go. I'm not getting that at Wegmans.
Yeah.
Like, would know me from going in there.
Yeah.
Oh, what'd you do now, stupid? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like, I want that. I don't want to go down to Giant and pick between a cactus and whatever thing I don't have any information on. Or they'd be like, make it personable. There's some spots around here. When you start heading up towards the Poconos, you kind of start getting like your Baskety and like your places like that. But you got to drive far to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a lot of those like really do well like on the weekends and stuff more than like during the weekdays. So it's just like figuring out what the areas are. And like part of my job, my 9-to-5 job is like learning and making connections with business owners and hearing where that is. So
how did you get into that? Because I want to get into there. How did you get into your 9-to-5 and who do you work for?
So I work for Lehigh Valley Style Magazine and I absolutely love it. Josh and I found a lot of our resources of where we wanted to go based on like the best of the Lehigh Valley categories and stuff. So like I used to like make a list of like where we needed to check out because of what food we wanted to try that weekend in the valley and stuff like that too. So that helped us. Like, it was a great resource for us. So when I saw they were hiring, I was like, heck yes, but long shot, you know? And so it worked out. And I started there in October and I've really enjoyed it.
What did you get hired on for?
So I work as a sales and marketing associate. So I work directly with our clients that do advertising, and kind of help small business owners figure out a plan for their marketing strategy and how we can help them reach the audience in the Lehigh Valley. We are the biggest magazine in the area that does print on a monthly basis as well.
And still prints.
Yep. Consistently every month. And we do awesome editorial features on local businesses. And it's a great resource for anything you're looking for. You can find all of the best of categories on our website. At any point in time, you can also find like wedding vendors because we have a weddings edition for Lehigh Valley. Weddings in 2023 comes out in January, and then like
I didn't know that you had the wedding stuff.
Yeah, so and then we have the vendor directory on our website, so you can actually go see those vendors that advertise as well as like are available in the area. So it's a really cool resource that I've really enjoyed using. So that's how I became passionate about it. And then
how did you find out they were hiring? Did you just post it?
Just online. Yeah. So I was looking for a job because I was realizing that insurance is really expensive when you work for yourself.
100%.
And so I definitely needed a 9-to-5 for insurance purposes, but also because I do really love having a work family. It kind of sucks to work for yourself sometimes because you're just
alone
by yourself all the time.
Just mostly crying.
Yeah. So I even did the math and I was like, I did 60 weddings last year. Do you know how many I actually had employees for? Like 7, because I'm a hustler and I kept telling myself I could do it by myself. And then I was pregnant and realized I couldn't.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the times too is like when you start working by yourself and getting shit done by yourself, it's really hard to accept help because it's just easier because that's the only way you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like I've moved this studio so many times I don't really ask anyone for help. So like I moved that thing up and down into the lobby by myself, which was extremely dangerous and like you shouldn't do it alone. But in my head, that's the only way it makes sense for me to do it because
Yeah.
so it's kind of a fault to mine where like I need to start getting like an intern and like contacting NACYAC and seeing like if I can start moving kids who are in TV and radio production into doing this, especially in the new studio, because there's going to be so many different assets where they could probably get credits for this stuff. Like that's where I need, and then like you also need to realize where sometimes you gotta accept help to grow, and
Yeah.
like you taking that job on, that's only going to benefit your other career in the florals, especially with weddings and stuff like that. Like that's a huge networking. That's huge networking to then be a part of.
Yeah.
So it's only going to grow your business that you're doing now, even though you're taking time away from it, but you also need to level out life sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it was super awesome. Like when we were selling, like I came on just at the perfect time to actually sell for weddings edition. And I was like, dude, I know so many more vendors than are even contacted here. Like we don't even have a list that contains.
Yeah, because once you probably because what did you do? A face-to-face interview?
Yeah.
So probably once you got there, they're probably like, oh yeah, like this lady runs her own business. She's
Well, so if one person had interviewed me, it would have been like, oh, maybe like confusing because my resume is so all over the place. Like I
Yeah.
said, like I was working at a car dealership. Before that, I worked at the Webstront store that is the online e-commerce business of the restaurant store in Bethlehem.
yeah.
But they're based out of Lancaster. But I worked there in their Georgia office. So like I've just had a bunch of like random,
Same.
year-long careers and
Yep.
stuff. So it's confusing if you don't know me.
Yeah,
as a
and it's
person.
annoying to fill out a job application.
Yeah. So I feel
And it doesn't look good when it's like, well, every year you left, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, I do my own thing. Well, are you going to do that here?
Yeah.
Like, that's why I was always like cooking. I was like, hey, I don't do drugs. You're hired.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, but when you fill out like a real job application and you want to like further a career, and I did it with the post office.
Yeah.
And when they start going into your like records, I'm like, man, sometimes I would leave jobs out in between just because I was like, hopefully you don't check in, but I cannot put 10 jobs in a row that I left. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's terrible.
Yeah.
So did you get a group interview? Is that what you're getting to?
No. So I just did one interview with the owner of the company, and then I did an interview with our publisher, Pam, and the owner again. And she was like, okay, so your resume, I wouldn't have really taken it as like the good fit that you are because of how many jobs.
Yeah.
Like how are these all relevant? And it's easy to tell you in person, but
Yes.
it's hard on paper to
It
communicate.
is, and I feel like it's and good for them for doing a sit down because most places don't even do that anymore. They'll make you fill out the resume. It's all online. Because I remember being able to go into places and be like, "Hey, do you have a resume?" And they're like, "We got time to talk to you now." And then I could sell myself once it was one on one and be like, "Hey, I'm a hard worker. My work ethic. I learned that early on. When you started using the word work ethic, that's when people start listening because they're like, "Oh, well, my father was blue collar. My mother's a nurse, and I got my work ethic from my dad, and all I like doing is working." I would get into jobs where people would be like, "You need to slow down." Like the factory workers were like, "You need to work well, like we are. You're making us look bad." I'm like, I just want to work, and that's how I would tell everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes they wouldn't believe me, and then when you get in there, they're like, "Oh, that's all. I like working. I don't ever stop working."
I'm the same.
It's why it works out for running your own business because you're working 24/7. Whether it's the way my brain is or ADD, it's like, all right, well, I'll make a post. Okay, well that's still work. All right, well cool. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start reaching out to clients and start booking and start doing that. All right, cool. Well that's work. And then everything I do 90% of the time until Saturday hits and we watch the fights is just work.
Yeah, I don't. If you ask Josh too, I don't know how to do anything else either, because I work. I also freelance too as a florist.
Of
so-
course you
So I
do.
freelance
Of course you do.
Yeah, so it wasn't until I actually passed out from the pregnancy because I was working too much.
Did he yell at you?
And I fell face forward at lunch and hit our table. Like I broke my glasses. I had a
Oh my
blackout
God.
When I was like 24 weeks pregnant, and I went to the ER, and I was like, okay, so not only did I do this to myself by working too much, I was doing full-time school. at Penn State because I'm trying to finish my degree in marketing eventually. You know, it's only been 8 years in the process that I'm almost done with.
Good for you. Most people would have given up by now.
Right? Yeah. Okay. But I'm only technically a year from being finished, and I hadn't. I eventually withdrew for the semester because I was like, okay, this was obviously not a good idea.
Yeah. But at least a lot of the stuff you have going on is successful.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely be in the red and your flower shop's going nowhere, and your Lehigh Valley Style didn't want you. And
I mean, that's very true in my case.
You're very successful. I know, I get it because I do the same thing. And sometimes when you don't take credit or you don't take, that's why when you even asked me about the Lehigh Valley Style thing, like that was one of the first things. I don't do stuff like this because if you sometimes I look at people who take on that too much, and then that's all they do is they take it on, and then the work's not there. So sometimes I'm afraid that if like I give myself too much credit, then I'll stop working, which isn't true because my therapist will tell you that. But she's like, yo, every time you get to a finish line, you move it forward. She's like, you're never going through the finish line. Can you give me going through the finish line? And every once in a while, we'll have a session, and I'll smile, and I go, you got 2 seconds, but I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
So for me and like crazy people with ADD, and you're addicted to work, and you got to keep moving that around in there. I feel like we don't take credit for stuff. That's why when you're saying this, you're like, yeah, well, like, you're taking a marketing degree on top of running a business, on top of having a 9-to-5, on top of having 4 dogs, and on top of being pregnant, and you don't think you're doing enough. Like
my therapist,
you're killing it.
With you, Mike, 'cause you say the same thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying is I recognize it in you because I do the same stuff, but I also, because you do similar shit to me, is you're killing it.
Thanks.
You're killing it. It's okay.
I'm just trying to make it through. But, you know, I don't even recognize it until then. And then I was like, you know, did I really do something crappy when you realize you get the hospital bill and you're like, I just did this.
You're like, but you did that so you can create another job.
3 jobs, and then all of that money for the whole month went to that medical bill.
Yeah.
So you're like, crap. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta slow down. So.
How long have you been with Lehigh Valley Style?
So I've been there since October.
Yeah. You like it?
I love it. It's great.
How's that atmosphere? Do you work from home a lot? Do you got to go into the office?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like a Google environment?
No, so we're pretty old school, but we do work from home, and we work in the office once a week.
Yeah.
It's really just a time that we're able to come together as a team and
go over everything.
Go over everything, go over our goals and what we're doing for print, and talk about our clients and how we can help them better, and different ways that we can get other people in the magazine that may not already be in there. Different things like bringing up the men of style and stuff like that, just talking through like what options we had, and then when those shoots are coming up, and different ideas for where they wanted to have that shoot that like really showed off the guys that were in there. So like cool stuff.
Yeah, that stuff's fun. That was so awkward and uncomfortable for me. I tried my best. I think I delivered for as much as I felt like going to something like that alone. And I've never done anything like that before. I've never been asked to do anything like that before. And, you know, I've been down here for a really long time, and sometimes I hide behind my work. And I was kind of having a conversation with myself where I was like, yo, man, like, you really need to start being like the guy behind Never Again, and stop like telling everyone that your like ideas aren't done. And that's a lot of times where I'll just start different projects, and I hide a lot. So it was kind of perfect timing, but I didn't know what I was going to wear. And at first I was going to wear something like ridiculous that like my friends would think was funny, but then I was like, you're probably just going to be hot and you're just going to be sweating a lot. So then I was like, all right, I'll rock like one of my new sweatshirts, and I'll like just rock my cargo shorts and a hat.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, all right, well, like that's what I would go on a date. That's what I would go on to my mom. That would be dressed up for my mom.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to be comfortable. So I drive up, and one of the guys gets out in a full suit, and I just go, fuck. And then I was like, fuck. And then I see the other guy, and he's got like a dress on, and or he's got a vest on, and he's got a tie. And I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like, did I Did I do this?
That
I'm
was
like,
the first thing I mentioned to Kristen when we were in the office the next day. I was like, how fun is Mike, number one? And two, like, I loved the contrast from everybody, and then in the middle is Mike with his backwards hat on.
yeah, no, I was smiling. The photographer, I met so many awesome people. When Amy hit me up, I went to school with Amy Unger, who she interviewed me for writing up the article.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, oh, I already know her. And then the other girl that I was talking to besides you was super nice. And then when I met everybody, everyone was just like super friendly and cool. And I'm glad I did it. Like I said, it was out of my comfort zone. And then, you know, I've always felt different from the way I dress and the stupid shit I do. I do it on purpose, but like I've been doing it for so long, I'm kind of comfortable with how I do things. But like, it was funny because I told the photographer, I was like, yo, unless you make me laugh, I'm not going to smile. So he started doing some dumb shit and I smiled and he caught my gold tooth and he's like, I got your gold tooth. But it was fun. I was just myself and I want to do more of that. Not in the sense of like that, but like I need to start being more of like, you know, because I went right up and I shook everybody's hand. You know, I'm in my 40s. I can't act like I'm in my 20s. Like I'm a grown man. Like I gotta. I'm in a sense of like when I meet people, I can't be like, you know, like we were all there for a serious reason. I didn't know how serious it was until we were all there, and I'm like, oh, these are like people with careers. I'm like, this guy owns the art museum. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I had to like talk myself out of it, where I was like, no, like you did something too.
For this?
Yeah, I was like, but I had to keep telling myself, I'm like, you're here for a reason. Like, you know, so then once I told my story to everybody, which I don't think is awesome. And then everyone was like, man, that's fucking crazy. And then I was like, oh, cool. So like, it was fun to bring everything full circle because that's when I started talking to you. And then I said, because I didn't understand why I thought you guys were at JM's wedding, but then I didn't see you later. And I said to Josh, I'm like, well, why weren't you there later? And he's like, well, we were there because we were working. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, we were not working. I was working. Did you see that he had frog shorts on?
He had a nice sweatshirt on, a Studio Kitchen sweatshirt.
Oh, okay. Probably covered in dog hair. This was why he turned into Cowboy Josh. Because I told him he had to buy pants.
He's into that, though.
He's really into it, and I appreciate it more than the frog shorts right now.
Yeah.
So, but those shorts are pretty cold. So.
Yeah. No, like I said, it was totally out of my comfort zone, but I met everybody there. I've already booked one podcast with the guys. I told them all, I was like, yo, if you want to come on the show, that we can network with each other. Everybody had a really awesome story between the West guy who, I just booked him today. He had lost his license for 22 years when he was a kid and like now does like public speaking and like talks to students and shit. And then the other guy does like a charity basketball event. Then I had knew the chef. It was like a vegan chef guy. I had knew him from doing being involved with Easton Tomato Girls. So it was like something I thought I would never do. And then I'm so glad I did it because once I was there, it was super comfortable and it was a cool feeling. And I'm like, it's hard to explain to people. Like my brothers have like degrees and like have gotten like things written up about them. But like this is so weird to do that like my brothers who are like licensed plumbers and electrical engineers and like my other brother went to like Penn State, Maine. So like me being like, hey, I'm doing this radio show with my friend, or like, hey, I'm starting this clothing company and it's never making any money. Like when because I screen capped that email and I sent it to my mom, like my mom will frame that magazine. So it was like more important to her or for me to like have some sort of physical proof that this is a thing.
Yeah.
That's like when we got on Tiger King, she thought I was famous. She's like calling her friend, Tina, he's on Netflix. I'm like, that was pretty cool. It's like this horrific show about like these dudes doing methamphetamines and killing tigers, and one's accused of murder. Great show, but I mean, for my mom, she didn't watch that show.
Yeah.
But it was cool that I came full circle.
Well, I mean, my mom even, like, with the Philly magazine thing.
Yeah.
So I had a baby shower this weekend because in the South, that's what you do. And mainly it's for your mom. So my mom had to do it for me since I couldn't go in person. And we did a virtual Zoom. So I was, like, on the big screen just with my face. And then she goes, "Oh, Caroline, everybody stop talking. Caroline, tell them what you were featured in." And it's like, on the write-up, it's just like who the florist was and it has my name. But it's just like Caroline was featured and she's been showing everybody the magazine. And same thing, like you said, like my brother works for SpaceX. Granted, he works like in the warehouse and logistics. But if you tell everybody from my hometown that they're like, my brother's a fucking astronaut.
Fucking Elon Musk.
Whoa, yeah. He tells people that shit too. Yeah. So it's like, you know, and then I'm over here playing with flowers. Like, what am I actually doing? So, you know, you got to give yourself more credit for what you do. I don't take enough credit for it either. Even when you asked me to be on this podcast, I was like, what are we going to talk about, Mike?
Yeah, we've been going for an hour.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Do you see like a future and things coming down the road for how long you want to be with Lehigh Valley Style? Do you see growth there? It seems like, I don't know what two women were there. There was two women who came along to do the shoot, but it seemed like you could just tell everyone works well with each other and that everyone's just kind of the correct person to be there. And then like the photographer that was chosen, the location, I've seen that publication of that magazine and like what they've been doing for a very long time. And I don't think I ever gave it the credit it deserved until like I saw it working. And then I was like, oh, this is somebody else just like me who started something from a creative passion. And then seeing like when I talked to Amy who interviewed me, who went to school for journalism, and then I was like, oh, you have like a serious, like you have a collective of passionate people that are helping you create one passionate goal that then goes out into the valley. And then the fact that you turn it into a business to make money on top of it, but then it also helps so many people. Like I said, I never really gave it the credit it deserves. So it's really cool to have been introduced and kind of dipped into that circle from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a team of awesome ladies that most people are like from around here and just really love the area. Each person who works here is from like a different part of the valley, like Coopersburg, Bethlehem, Whitehall. I live in Fountain Hill, Allentown, like, and then we all come together just in our passion, mutual passion for helping small business owners in the valley and getting to know each other and other people. I really love that part of it. It's just, you know, if your goal of advertising is like, hey, I'm a small business owner, I only have this budget to come in, you know, like once in the whole year. Okay, that's awesome. Then what can I do to help you and connect you with another business owner that would help you in your business? Like, we have an awesome lady that works in Emmaus that she just opened a store called Soul Sisters Emmaus, and she really focuses on women empowerment, and she does classes. And so I was able to connect her with other people that want to do classes in the area but don't have the like venue for it. So those kinds of connections and stuff matter.
It's cool when you can start. I do it on a very small level here, but the amount of people that have crossed over the show, you start being able to answer anyone's. Like, I remember Zach hit me up and was like, do you know anyone who has a wrestling ring? And I was like, I do. And then he was like, I'm like, do you want me to contact him? And he said, wait, how do you have a wrestling ring guy? And I was like, well, my friend Chris.
How did you think I had one?
I was like, well, my friend Chris runs Lehigh Valley Apparel Creations, but he's also really into wrestling. And he holds these events where he brings, like they used to do it in his screen printing warehouse, and now he has them on different venues. I think they did one at Arts Quest the last time for Music Fest or something, but like, I was like, if you want to do that, then I contacted Chris, and he was like, this is what it would cost. And then I went back to Zach, and we laughed.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you have a wrestling ring guy.
Well, I mean, even when they were like, hey, do you guys have anybody for men of influence? They were like, we're looking for people in this kind of category and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, I do. I've only been here for 3 years, but I have like definitely the person for you. Here you go. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, how do you know this person? It's like, it's just crazy how the world works.
Yeah, because I remember I started working out with Josh on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we were leaving, and I usually hang back to, like, talk to him on, like, how my back feels, or just, like, you know, Josh is a friend to me, so, like, I want I'm not just like later. Like I'm like, hey, I'll wait for you to lock up. Take cannoli outside. Can you help me down the steps on leg days? And I appreciate everything he does, and he's such a good teacher.
And for the podcast, cannoli is our dog.
No, he takes a giant cannoli with him everywhere. And he was like, hey, he's like, she started working at Lehigh Valley Style, and like she brought your name up for a thing, and you might be getting a call. And I was like, what? Because like I said, nobody really has ever reached out to me. Nobody has ever like asked what this is, especially in Nazareth. Like I never really had like people approach it like it's a real business. So like it was kind of cool to see somebody on a higher level be like, hey, this is somebody who's doing a lot. And then, like I said, like you, I don't take credit for anything. I don't want credit for anything. So it was awkward to do, but I appreciate you throwing my name in there. I feel like I've been doing this shit for a very long time. And I don't know. It felt weird, but I want to do more stuff like that. I I always look at getting out of my comfort zone by like creating a new business or starting something new creative. And sometimes it isn't about that. It's about taking in and being and accepting and feeling the way other people actually see you. Like, you know what I mean? Like this,
it's hard to do.
It's very hard to do. Like this version of me is usually only shown to my friends and family. And like, I used to be that way with my humor. And then like, they'd be like, oh, Michael's so funny. And then I'd be like, I'm just leave me alone. And then like, but I would be funny to my friends. And then like the podcast kind of made me have to be Michael to everybody. And then that's kind of like how this developed. And then the more I started wanting to show myself to people I don't know, came down this rabbit hole because I get to make other people be themselves, which is the whole point of the show, is to show who you are. But like, we wouldn't have had this conversation in the Finishers parking lot while I was making burgers. You know what I mean? So it's cool to bring people in and be like, all right,
Mike,
well,
we've met like 15 times.
Yes. So, and usually I'm like, what? Like more burgers. So, it's cool to like, when I start looking in and I'm like, well, this is how I am, and you're not showing it. So like, there's a million people out there who are also not showing it, which is what the show naturally turned into, is me just trying to get them to be as comfortable as I am. And it's not easy for me to do. I'm not a people person. I'm very shy. And I can't believe I chose this to do for a living.
Great career.
Plenty of resources around here to get an apparel company off the ground in a coal miner's town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great idea. Great jump start.
I want to thank you for coming in. I want to do this again. I want to get other women with business, and I'm doing another show where we kind of just sit a bunch of people down and just kind of talk shit. And obviously it'll be after your child is born and further down the road. But I want to thank you so much for coming on. The first time that we kind of talked on the phone and I heard about like what you were doing with the floral stuff, I was just super interested because there was that southern thing kept grabbing me, and I'm like, there's no way she's like anyone else around here, because I know from living there and you guys coming up, and I knew Josh, so like I really wanted to get the full story of what's going on. And it's cool that you were able to come up here, adjust to what was going on, get through COVID, have a regular job, create this business, then get yourself into one of the most lucrative places to work in the Lehigh Valley, on top of still crushing it, doing floral stuff. And it's not easy to do while you're pregnant or while you're transitioning to figure out life in an area that is polar opposites of where you came from. So I want to give you a moment to plug your social media so that if anyone needs to get a hold of you for floral stuff or anything that you're doing currently, that they can just reach out to you.
Sure. So you can reach out to me for florals at Indigo and Iris events. We also do wedding planning as well. And then LV Style Caroline is my Lehigh Valley Style Instagram as well. I
started realizing that. So all you girls have an LV Style separate account. Do you have to keep up with that and run it as a part of work?
No. It's just like an opportunity to, like for me, I like to share things that like businesses that I've met are doing. Yeah. And that's a platform that I can do it on more regularly than my personal.
Yeah, I just didn't know that you guys all had Lehigh Valley Style accounts. It's cool.
Yeah. Kristen, our editor, has a bigger account that she does like a lot of her, like she does a podcast as well. So she shares a lot of her podcast stuff that she's working on there as well.
Yeah, I was talking to, I think Amy, I'm going to try and get in here next. And then after that, I'm going to start digging through the employees over there. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
You guys everyone's got different stories and backgrounds, but then, that's a plethora of people who are into style and stuff like that, and everybody's unique.
I'm not sure if you've ever seen the TV show Bones. But Bones, like the actress, one of the main actresses on there, her mom actually works with us too.
Oh,
So we have a whole
That's
a
cool.
whole crew of cool people up there that have cool backgrounds and stories that you'll never know about unless you have a conversation with them. So it's really cool.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. If you're a first-time listener, first-time watcher, it's neveragainstudio.com. You can watch all the podcasts on there. You can listen to the podcasts on there. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. It's on iTunes, all underneath Never Again Studio. If you go over to my Instagram, that is probably the main thing to follow. That's where I'm doing all my food stuff, clothing, everything, and just a big hodgepodge of ADHD. That is my Instagram. If you go into my link tree, you can buy apparel through there. It's drop shipping with Kyle from Dynamite Screen Printing. That's where, if you order, I'm going to be dropping new stuff soon. So if you order from there, Kyle drop ships it. You'll get it in a day or two. It's taken a giant headache out of me dealing with apparel. Thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it. We've done almost an hour and a half. I will let you go home.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Never Again Radio. Get into it, brother.